And on behalf of the NDP and all of you, I want to acknowledge the traditional territory that we are on of the Anishinaabe people of Fort William First Nation. And so thank you to them for welcoming us on their territory. Thank you. There are, aside from all of you special people, there are a few that I would like to mention. We have Jim Foles over here in the back. Jim Foles has served our people. And we have Ian Angus as well, who's here, who has served our people as well as an NDP member. So I'm very proud to be part of this wonderful team. You know, as a person that has lived in Northern Ontario all her life, I have also had the honor of traveling throughout this beautiful country that we call home. And, you know, for us that live here in Northern Ontario, we have a beautiful country. And I've also had the honor of meeting with many of our people. And, you know, whether it was sitting on the shores of Grassy Narrows or on the Albany River or here in the wonderful Lake Superior, you know, we have a lot of work to do to protect our lands and our waters. And, you know, so let us do that together. And as a person of the North, I will continue to work really hard for you all because, you know, I have it in my heart. And I also will serve you with honesty and integrity because that's who the NDP represents and that's who we stand for. And so thank you very much for being here. So at this time, I want to introduce Yaksamwan, who will be the next MP for Thunder Bay Rainy River.
Thank you, Miigwech Anabedi, for the warm welcome from Thunder Bay Superior Shores. Thank you. Hello. Welcome. Bonjour. Bienvenue. Hey, what a fantastic crowd. Thank you for coming and joining us. My name is Yaksamwan, and I am the candidate for Thunder Bay Rainy River. I've been all over this region, and I've heard people's frustrations about politicians who offer pretty words and just end up giving us empty promises. Jagmeet Singh is different. I am so proud to know him. And I know that he genuinely loves people and he cares about what happens to the rest of us. In this campaign, his leadership is the one that is taking on the rich and the well-connected, and he's standing up for Northwestern Ontario and all Canadians against the powerful corporations and the lobbyists. He is putting forward ideas that will make Canada better for all of us. I am truly inspired by your leadership and by your heart that you have shown to all Canadians. That I am just so proud to be on the NDP team and the representative for Thunder Bay Rainy River. So please join me in giving a warm northern welcome to our leader of the New Democratic Party of Canada, Jagmeet Singh.
Thank you, friends. How y'all feeling? All right. We got some people in this room ready for some change? All right. All right, before I go any further, I just want to acknowledge when I stand up and I give a speech and I talk to all of you, I want you to realize I'm not here by myself. I'm here with a huge team. And I'm really honored to have two of those amazing teammates with me, Yuksem and Anna Betty. These are just two of the incredible teammates we have across Canada. We've broken a lot of records with our team, but just give some love to our incredible team right here. So friends, I want to share with you a little bit of what's going on. We're in an election, in case you didn't notice. and yeah, we are. And in this election, there's a lot at stake. I want to talk to you about what's at stake and what we're up against. Because as Anna Betty mentioned and Yuksem mentioned, you know, for a lot of people, things are getting pretty tough, right? Things are kind of hard for a lot of people. I know there's a lot of students in here who are hopeful about their future, are excited because they're in school and learning, but they're also afraid of the student debt that they're going to graduate with and how much that's going to weigh on them. And every time I meet a young person who's graduating from school and is worried about the debt that they're faced with, I feel like we've made a massive mistake. We've let them down. We've let young people down. Young people shouldn't be worried about debt. They should be excited about the future. We look at families. I meet with families all the time, and I ask them what they're going through, and they tell me they're worried about the future as well. It's harder and harder to find a home. Housing is a big fear for a lot of people. And healthcare, which we're so proud of. As Canadians, we're proud of our healthcare system. But it's not always there for people when they need it. And I think about the families that I've met that can't afford medication. You know, in a country as rich as ours, there's far too many Canadians that have to make a really tough choice between whether they buy the medication they need or the groceries or pay the bills or pay the rent. These are real decisions people are making. I remember I met this young kid, 10 years old, and he was just wise beyond his years. And he told me that he was living with an illness, and it meant that he had to take medication every day and take injections and watch his blood levels. And he told me, you know, if I don't watch my blood levels, I might die, so I got to be sure I'm top of it. And I was like, wow, this young kid is so brave. And he could see that I was worried about him. And he said, no, don't worry about me. I know how to do this. I know how to take my medication. I know how to take my pills. I know how to take the injections. I'm okay. But I am worried about something. I'm worried about how much my medication is costing my mom and dad. This little kid, 10 years old, was worried about being a burden to his family. And I was thinking about a country as rich as ours, should that be the way things are? Right? And I thought, I met a woman, you know, she's pregnant and her doctor prescribed a medication. She's got coverage, she's got health benefits, but her coverage doesn't cover the medication she needs. So she's paying hundreds of dollars a month for this medication that she needs to take. She's also feeling the weight and the burden of it. And I think about the families that I meet that put off dental care. I meet so many people that say, you know what, it costs too much, I'm just not gonna do it. Kids that need dental care don't get it because their families can't afford it. And again, I think about the country as wealthy as ours, a healthcare system that covers you when you need to get open heart surgery, but if you walk into the surgery, if you walk into the emergency room because your teeth are hurting, there's no help. And I think about, you know, families and young people that are worried about the environment. They're worried about our planet. And they're demanding that leaders take action because leaders have let them down. And they're also worried about the future. We just saw climate action where thousands of kids took to the streets demanding action. And I think about all these stresses that people are going through. The fact that families can't afford childcare, they can't get the health care they need. And I think about, well, what choices do they have? Well, we know that, you know, there's the liberal option. And Mr. Trudeau, he says a lot of nice things. I'll admit that. He says a lot of nice words. But has he delivered on the real action that he promised? No. Right? And I think about one of the biggest shames. He's talked about his relationship with Indigenous people. He said that was the most important relationship. And he said that again and again. And then recently, over the past couple of years, the Human Rights Tribunal found that he had contravened the basic rule that Indigenous kids should get equal funding. He broke that, and they said, well, you've got to pay up. You've got to make sure Indigenous kids get equal funding. And there was one order that he ignored, a second order, 4 orders that he ignored, and then recently there was a landmark decision that said, pretty obviously, that Indigenous kids should get equal funding. And guess what Mr. Trudeau did with that landmark decision? He's taking Indigenous kids back to court. You know, and then for families that can't find housing, he said a lot. He promised that he would invest in housing. And then we researched that promise. Guess what? It turns out that his commitment to invest in housing is actually 19% less than what Mr. Harper invested. So Mr. Trudeau is actually putting less money in housing than the Conservative government. And so I look at the decisions he's making and I'm saying, you know what? The pretty words and the nice promises aren't really backed up with action. He says that he wants to lower the cost of medication, and he promised to change the list of countries that we compared to set prices. 4 years later, he didn't do it, and I was wondering, why didn't he do it? It turns out he met with pharmaceutical companies and big pharma and big insurance lobbyists over 875 times. And so obviously he abandoned that promise again. Again and again, Mr. Trudeau says nice things but doesn't deliver on it, and it's becoming more and more clear. Mr. Trudeau is not working for people. He's working for those at the very top, the wealthy and the powerful, making their life easier, and it's making everyone's life harder. And I think about students that are worried about their tuition fees. You know what Mr. Trudeau's done in the past 4 years? In 4 years, the federal government has charged prime plus 3% on student debt. So effectively, Mr. Trudeau has profited off of student debt on the backs of students in 4 years, $3 billion. But here are his choices. He takes from students $3 billion, but last year, he forgave $6 billion in corporate loans. Take that in. Students, he says, you've got to pay interest on your student debt. You've got to pay up $3 billion. But to wealthy corporations, he says, you know what, it's okay, I'll forgive $6 billion of your loans. These are the choices that he's making. This is not a coincidence. This is not by chance. These are choices he's making. And I put it to you, I think his choices are wrong. I think it's time for some better choices. Now, families can't wait 4 more years for the health care they need. They can't wait 4 more years for the dental care they need. Students can't wait 4 more years for change to make life easier. Now, are conservatives the answer? No. I was pretty sure you'd say no in this room. But let me break it down, because they're going to say some nice things as well. They're going to say in this campaign, they're going to say, you know what, we're going to put money in your pocket. We're going to cut your taxes. Now, sure, they're going to cut taxes. They're going to cut it mostly for the richest, right? Mostly for the richest. They'll cut a little bit for everyone else. But what else are they going to cut? They're going to cut all the services that your family and you count on. And it's going to end up costing you a lot more. They're going to talk about saving you money, but let's be honest, they're going to cost you a lot more. So if we can't go with the red door anymore, that's not going to help us out. And the blue door is not going to help us out. Well, where do we go? I say it's time to choose the orange door this time around. Right? NDP, NDP. So friends, I want to say to you this. This is my commitment to you. We can take on the big pharma and the big lobbyist. We can take on the insurance lobbyists and say to Canadians this, that if you live in this country and you need medication, you should use your health card, not your credit card. We are going to deliver national pharmacare for all in 1 year. We're going to deliver dental care for all the families that can't afford it right now. We're going to deliver that right away. We're going to say to students, to young people who are stressed and feeling the weight of student debt, we're going to say to you this. On day 1 of a new Democratic government, we forgive all interest on student loans right away. And then we're going to go further. We're going to go further. We're going to replace loans with grants that are non-repayable. Yeah? And we're going to move towards a future where there's no barriers to education, where young people can go from kindergarten to career without barriers, and that means free tuition. My friends, in this election, liberals are going to tell you, they're going to make you afraid. They're going to scare you into settling for less. They're going to say, oh, the conservatives are so scary. Don't go for them. Vote for us. They're going to scare you into settling for less. Do you deserve less? No. Do you deserve more? Yes. All right, then let's get more. Let's get universal health care that covers you when you need it. Let's invest in housing. Let's invest in our young people. Let's invest in people instead of powerful corporations. My friends, the reason we're going to do all of this is we're going to do one other thing too. And we're not afraid to say it. We're going to ask the people at the very, very top to pay a little more. We're going to put in place a super wealth tax. For those who've got over $20 million in fortune, we're going to ask you to pay a little bit more. I'm pretty sure that's not anyone in this room. But if it is tough, we're going to ask you to pay some more. Because we believe that the wealthiest in our society aren't paying their fair share. Middle class, low income, working people are paying enough. Small businesses are paying enough. You don't need to pay any more. But the richest in our society have got away with not paying their fair share for too long. That ends now. My friends, I'm not in it for the rich. I don't work for the powerful. I work for all of you. I'm in it for all of you. I'm going to fight for all of you, and together we're going to build a better future. Are you ready to do it? Are you going to elect Anna Betty and Yuksem in this riding? And new Democrats across this country? All right, let's do it. Thank you very much, my friends. Let's make this happen. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Hang tight. We're going to take some questions from the media. So this is a beautiful group of energetic folks. Stay here, stay energetic. We're going to take some questions. Okay, we're going to begin in the back.
Hello, Mr. Singh. Kevin Gallagher, CTV National News. I know that you just brought it up in your address here to the crowd, but the Liberal leader has now reacted, of course, to the decision to continue to challenge that Canadian Human Rights Tribunal decision for Indigenous children. He's saying that there wasn't enough time, that this decision came just before the writ period, that the children do deserve compensation, but that his government or any government that would come in after October 21st needs more time to prepare to do that properly. What's your reaction to that statement from Justin Trudeau?
If he was genuine about taking the time to deliver the money, he wouldn't be appealing the decision. He'd be talking about how to get the job done. Right? If the question was about taking the time to make sure that the equal compensation was delivered, that could be done. But what he's doing is he's challenging Indigenous kids. He's taking Indigenous kids to court. That's just wrong. That's wrong. En français, oui. Donc, si M. Trudeau a voulu vraiment de donner la justice, de financer dans une manière équitable les enfants autochtones, il pourra le faire. Mais ce qu'elle a décidé de faire, elle a décidé de faire l'appel de la décision. Et ça, c'est tort.
Just for a follow-up, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to actually read the appeal that's been filed. But the government in the appeal claims the tribunal erred in 6 different ways. I'll just read out one of those for you, and then I can get your reaction, please. So I think most telling for myself, I suppose, that the tribunal erred in determining that discrimination is ongoing with respect to funding for child and family services on reserve. So what's your reaction to that, one of those aspects of the appeal that's been filed?
So just to repeat, the filing is saying that the injustice in funding is not ongoing, is what Mr. Trudeau's government is claiming. And that's just simply wrong. We have the evidence, and the tribunal decision shows that the funding for Indigenous kids is far less than what we would expect for anyone else. And it always has been. And so this is not just a historic injustice, it's an ongoing injustice until a government takes the courage to say, no, we're not going to continue to unequally fund Indigenous kids. We're going to make sure they get the same funding. I would do that without any question.
Mr. Singh, good afternoon. Good evening. David Thornton from CBC News.
Good evening, David.
Premier Rachel Notley, former Premier Rachel Notley has said that she isn't sure whether or not she's going to vote for the NDP government in the federal election. Are comments like that helpful?
Just means I got to work harder. It's all good. I'm going to convince her. I'm working hard for people, and I know. I mean, in all honesty, Premier Notley, she did an amazing job. She fought hard for people. She made it clear. Yes, in Alberta, she made it clear that New Democrats put healthcare and education and young people as a priority. And she did a host of amazing things. All the same things we want to do at the federal level. We disagree on one point, but there's so much that we have in common, and it's okay. I'm going to keep on working hard. I don't take anything for granted. I don't take anyone's vote for granted. Unlike liberals and conservatives who just assume that one person's going to get in and then the other one's going to get in, I don't take anything for granted. I've never taken anything for granted in my life, and I don't take people's votes for granted.
When's the last time that you reached out to her? I mean,
yeah, our team has been reaching out to the Alberta NDP on a regular basis.
but yourself, I mean, she is a force for the NDP within Alberta.
Yeah,
when have you personally reached out to her or met with her?
Yeah, she's a great force for the NDP. She does amazing work, and I'm proud to call her a champion that's fought for people and someone that I respect. And I'm continuing to reach out to her team, and I look forward to meeting in the future.
Mr. Singh, Michael Couture with Global National.
Welcome back, Michael. You can applaud for that. It's fine.
I'll take the response from the room that you and that lady are the only two people happy to see me. So now I forget. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's okay.
So
it's good. You're good. You're okay.
Back to the problem with Ms. Notley. I mean, you said you disagree on one thing.
Yep.
You've said openly that you wouldn't twin Trans Mountain.
That's correct.
So how do you transition out of oil without throwing an entire province out of work?
Well, here's the reality. Oil sand workers, resource workers across Canada go through busts and booms. And whether it's this current situation that people are in right now or in the past, it's been that way, where through no fault of those hardworking people, the international markets go up and go down, and that means people go through busts and booms. And I think that's unfair, that workers, hardworking people have to go through that volatility. I think it's incumbent on government to make decisions to build an economy that's more sustainable, that's more reliable, and that creates jobs that are long-lasting and quality. That's my commitment. And so what I'm going to do is make investments in clean energy, make investments in retrofitting homes, make investments in building new homes across this country that's going to give massive opportunities for work. Our plan to tackle the climate crisis is not just a plan to tackle the climate crisis, but it's also a jobs plan. It's going to include training and changes to EI to give people opportunities to get the skills they need for the future, to help them when they're going through ups and downs. I believe in taking care of workers. New Democrats have always fought for workers, and we always will.
But one could make the argument that if Ms. Notley is not ready to support you yet, that means that potentially your decisions that you've made and your positions you've taken, have you decided that you just don't need Alberta votes?
Not at all. I need everyone's votes. Like I said, I don't take anyone's vote for granted. I want to fight for everyone in this country, and I want to fight for everyone's support because I believe we can make investments in people. And what we've seen in Ottawa has been decision after decision that's made life easier for the wealthy, made life easier for the powerful, but it hasn't made life better for everyone else. It's in fact made life harder for everyone else. I want to change that. And I know that the plans we have are going to save money for families in Alberta, here in Ontario, across this country. I'm confident that our universal pharmacare plan, our dental care plan, our plan to build housing, our plan to tackle the climate crisis are going to lift up people and create better opportunities.
Bonjour, Jérôme Labbé, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, Jérôme.
On a compris que vous n'étiez pas un grand fan de pétrole. Yves-François Blanchette, aujourd'hui, comme l'a déjà fait le premier ministre Legault, a qualifié le pétrole albertain, le pétrole des sables bitumineux, qui pollue énormément, de pétrole sale. Est-ce que c'est une expression avec laquelle vous êtes confortable?
Donc, ce que je veux dire, c'est que ce qu'on peut faire pour l'avenir. Et pour l'avenir, comme gouvernement fédéral, on a le pouvoir d'investir dans l'avenir. Et ce qu'on va faire, c'est de tout de suite annuler les subventions pétrolières. Et avec cet argent, On veut l'investir dans l'énergie propre, dans l'énergie renouvelable, parce que pour l'avenir, c'est clair. Si on investit dès maintenant, on peut être leader pour mondial, et c'est nécessaire qu'on agisse dès maintenant pour faire face à la crise climatique, mais aussi pour être leader en matière de l'environnement et de l'économie globale.
Est-ce que vous prenez l'engagement d'aller en Alberta d'ici le 21 octobre?
Est-ce que je prends l'engagement de faire quoi?
D'aller en Alberta d'ici le 21 octobre.
On a déjà allé en Alberta jusqu'avant l'action s'était déclenchée. Donc, j'ai hâte de retourner et on va vous donner les détails de nos engagements pour l'avenir, où on va aller. Donc, on peut le partager.
In English, please.
Yes, so we have, I have been to Alberta recently, just before the election started. We have a great candidate out there who's awesome. We spent time at the Fringe Fest and met lots of folks, and I would love to get back out there again. I'll give you the details of where we're headed next. To be honest with you, I only know 1 or 2 days ahead of time where we're going, but I'm sure my team can give you those details.
James Murray from Net News Ledger. I'm a former Albertan, but I'll ask you Northern Ontario question.
Sure.
Boil water orders in northern communities across Ontario have been going on for 25 years. There's people in communities who have never had a drink of fresh water from a tap. Communities like Attawapiskat, where having a shower, they tell you leave the windows open. What would you do to solve that problem?
I want to take this question very, very seriously. We're in 2019. We're in a wealthy country with massive amounts of technology. I do not accept any excuses from any previous governments why this cannot be tackled. I believe that we need to immediately move to address the injustice that is happening across this country, particularly in Northern Ontario, immediately ensure that everyone, every Indigenous person has access to clean drinking water. I don't accept any excuse that says otherwise. I know it can be done, and we will get it done.
In follow-up, we've had some recent announcements in the north on Watay Power with east-west power connection announced this week. There has been a lot of funding announcements for education and forestry for First Nation communities across the north. What else can be done in your opinion?
Well, the east-west energy connection is a powerful idea. We've got massive amounts of clean energy that's renewable, that's being produced in Manitoba, that's being produced in Quebec, and it's not connected east-west across Canada. So one of our commitments in our climate bank, which we're going to seed with $3 billion, is to make sure that that's a reality, that we actually connect the vast amounts of clean energy we have in BC, in Manitoba, in Quebec, with the rest of Canada. We want to be leaders in ensuring this happens, and at the federal level provide leadership and provide the financial support to make this happen. I think that would be a massive thing to do. We also want to make sure with any project that when we move forward with any project, it has to recognize there's got to be a community benefit. And that community benefit has to speak to Indigenous communities as equal partners, not as a top-down approach, but as equal partners, nation to nation. We need to build with that type of relationship.
Miguel Lachance, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, Miguel.
Donc, je voudrais avoir donc, la réponse au sujet des avis d'ébullition. Qu'est-ce que le gouvernement néo-démocrate fera pour mettre fin à ces avis d'ébullition dans les communautés autochtones du nord de l'Ontario?
C'était quoi? C'était quel enjeu?
Les avis d'ébullition, l'eau potable.
OK, d'accord. Donc, ce que j'ai dit, c'est maintenant 2000, je m'excuse. 2019. C'est maintenant 2019. Et dans 2019, avec la technologie, avec la puissance de notre pays, avec l'argent, la richesse qu'on a comme pays, je n'accepte pas des excuses pourquoi les gouvernements anciens n'ont pas réagi à ce problème. Je n'accepte pas des excuses. Je vais le faire. Si on a le courage de le faire, on peut le faire. Et un gouvernement néo-démocrate va prendre ça au sérieux et on va agir de maintenant et s'assurer que chaque communauté autochtone a le droit à l'accès à l'eau potable.
Hi, it's Jeff Waterfield at Country 105 and 99.9 The Bay Newsroom, Thunder
Hey.
Bay. Local media.
Hey.
Yeah. We have a Bombardier plant here, and it's kind of rough shape. There is Canadian content that has been discussed by other politicians. Aside from that, what other things that can you do to help save this plant?
Well, let me just touch on that. So I spent some time with the Bombardier workers, those hardworking men and women that are right now faced with massive job losses in the future. Already, many of them have received layoff notice, and many more are going to get laid off. This is pretty devastating for a city, for those families, and it's really scary. And one of the things that we're not doing is Canadian content. And I actually haven't heard anyone else, any federal leader, talk about this. And so I made an announcement at the Bombardier work site with some of the workers that were from Bombardier, and I said a new democratic government would ensure that when we're using public money for procurement, it has to go towards procurement that it requires Canadian content. So I gave one example, a concrete example. We've got Via Rail is a train company that we own, and there was a tender for $1 billion to buy new trains. Now, Bombardier makes some of the best trains in the world, but instead of using our public money for a public crown corporation, something that we own, to go to a Canadian company, or at least some Canadian content, the entire contract, $1 billion, went to Siemens, a German company. Now, I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong that we're spending public money on public procurement for something that we own, not on supporting Canadian manufacturing. So this is a clear example of how we can create Canadian jobs by requiring that if we're spending our own money, our public dollars, there has to be a procurement process that requires Canadian content. I think that is a powerful way to go forward.
Okay, the Canadian content has been discussed in the past. Never done. Okay. Is there anything else besides Canadian content that has never been thought of before that you can think of?
Sure, yeah. So one, I mean, I would do it, not just talk about it. So I want to make that a distinction. It's a big difference, right? No one's proposed that as a concrete commitment in this election. I propose that as a concrete commitment. So that's one. But secondly, we know we need to tackle the climate crisis. One of the ways we can do that is by investing massively in public transit. And so our commitment at the federal level is to invest massively in electrifying public transit and building public transit. And what that will do is create jobs for Bombardier, a Canadian producer of some of the best LRTs, light rail vehicles that run in cities, that can be run by electricity, that can change the impact we have. We know that the 3 largest contributors to greenhouse gases are energy production, buildings, and transportation. If we make those massive investments, which we have committed to doing, massive investments in cities across this country will create jobs here in Canada, will help us lower our emissions, but will also ensure that we're making life better for people because they can get around better. So that's what we're going to commit to as well. Yes.
Hi, Doug Isaac with TBA Newswatch. The northern communities are seeing an outpouring of people who are leaving due to the high cost of living, the loss of jobs. It's estimated that the Northern Ontario would need thousands of new immigrants just to keep these communities going. Is there anything that the NDP would do to incentivize people coming to this region to basically keep it on its feet?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We've got a new deal for people. It's our platform commitment, our commitments to people. We also have a new deal for Northern Ontario. And that new deal involves making sure we connect the opportunities that exist in Northern Ontario with new Canadians as they come. There's great opportunities here. We've got plans to make sure we make investments in the north. The Northland Express is something that was taken away that lost connectivity, that made it harder for people in the north. We want to invest in making sure people have an opportunity to live and to grow and to expand our country. And particularly the north of Ontario. I just want to check that everyone's okay. Does anyone need help back there? Is everything okay? Okay. Everything's okay? Okay. So that's what we would do. I think there's a way to make sure we connect people who come to Canada with the opportunities, and that hasn't been done, and we're making a commitment to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Hi, Kevin Gallagher again, but I actually have a question from one of my colleagues at CTV Vancouver, and then I may have a follow-up to it.
Sure.
So they're going to be covering a large protest from Greenpeace at the Burnaby Mountain. So they want to know what your message is to British Columbians about the Trans Mountain Pipeline project.
I've made it really clear this is a project that I don't support. I'm opposed to for a number of reasons. It's one that threatens the BC coastline. It threatens the beautiful BC coastline with diluted bitumen oil, which we don't know how to clean up. And if there's even one oil spill, it could devastate thousands of jobs and all the marine diversity along the coastline. It's also something that does not respect Indigenous rights, and Indigenous communities are essentially being exploited. Their rights are not being recognized, and they've been challenging this in court. And it also, for me, I think we've got to invest in projects that create jobs that are not just rip and ship jobs, that create value-added jobs. And this is another raw resource being exported as opposed to adding value. So for these reasons, this is a project that I do not support, and I'll continue to fight it. And I want folks to know in BC that I've got their back.
You've been so clear about that project, but I find less about the huge liquid natural gas project that's also going through BC. So if you form government, would you allow that project, which arguably could have a bigger impact on carbon emissions, to go forward?
So with respect to that project, what I've said is two things. One, I would immediately end fossil fuel subsidies. On day one of a Democratic government, I wouldn't be spending any of our public dollars on fossil fuel sectors. Instead, I'd be spending it on clean, renewable energy. The second thing is BC has the most ambitious climate action plan in North America, and they fit all of their projects within their plan, and I trust them to do their work. But my problem is Mr. Trudeau hasn't done that. He hasn't fit Trans Mountain within a national framework of reducing emissions. And because he hasn't done that, it's another reason why I oppose the project.
Hi, Mr. Singh. My name is Mitch Goldenberg. I'm with the Chronicle Journal here in Thunder Bay.
Hey, Mitch.
Bringing the topic back to Northern Ontario.
Sure.
Now, you've mentioned some investments, and I just want to know where exactly these investments are going to go and how you're going to oversee them to ensure that it really revitalizes the local economy.
Sure. So first off, to just make life easier for families in general, our commitments to universal pharmacare for all is going to save families thousands of dollars. It's going to make life easier. Our commitments to dental care is going to save thousands of dollars for families here in the north and across Canada. So those are commitments that will make life better. We've got a commitment for childcare, which is going to help out families. Again, literally saving families at least $2,000 a month because childcare costs so much. But in addition to that, for the north specifically, what we want to do is our plan to tackle the climate crisis involves an energy retrofit. And that's to retrofit all homes and buildings. Those are retrofits that have to happen in communities. That means creating jobs in the north. That means creating jobs here in Thunder Bay, jobs that are involved with the renovation of buildings, the retrofitting, the installation of solar panels and windows and insulation. These are going to create jobs in communities. They can't be exported. In addition, we want to make sure that when new Canadians come to Canada to make Canada their home, they're better connected with opportunities here in the north. We want to connect them directly to the opportunities that exist here in Thunder Bay and in the rest of Northern Ontario. It's a beautiful place to live, but people just don't have that connection, and we want to make sure that happens. Those are all the questions from the media, friends. I want to say thanks again for being here. Thank you. You're so amazing. I'm going to spend some time hanging out with you. Thank you. I love you. You're amazing. You're amazing. I'm in for you. Okay, on the chorus.